Welcome, everyone. You are joining us for ABE Foundations for our first in a series of three. I'm Patsy Egan and I direct Atlas here at Hamline University, and I'm very grateful to have Rachel doing the heavy lifting on this webinar series. So I'll let Rachel introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I very much appreciate it. I'll just move to the next thing. We're glad you're here. My name's Rachel Stiglitz. I'm an ABE facilitator with Metro East Consortium, and I facilitate intakes and proctor assessment testing for Mounds View Adult Education and Ramsey County Correctional Facility. Those are both two programs in the Metro East Consortium. Okay, I'm going to move along. So over the course of this webinar series, you will meet staff and representatives from the Minnesota Department of Education and various support network providers. So today with us, we have Dr. Brandy Logan. Brandy, would you like to introduce yourself and say something?
Hi there, everyone. I'm Dr. Brandy Logan, and with this team here at the state, I am the Adult High School Equivalency and Accountability Specialist. So anytime you're working with anyone doing a high school equivalency like their GED, as well as a high set, or working with adult diploma for a secondary degree, that is the department of area that I oversee.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So the main objective for this webinar series, it's meant to support your individual asynchronous work in ABE Foundations online course. That's the Canvas course that you're either in right now or you've taken before and you're just using this as a refresher. Together, these opportunities are designed to provide thorough introduction to Minnesota adult basic education. And this includes who we serve, our system, policies, and procedures, the three sets of content standards that guide Minnesota adult basic education instruction, as well as opportunities for professional growth and support. Okay, so throughout this training, you will hear adult education, adult ed, adult basic education, and ABE. These are all referring to the same thing. So adult education is a federal term, and adult basic education is used in the Minnesota state statute. Many programs in recent years have shifted from ABE to adult education. As we note here, it's because GED math is not basic. I can think of other programs like certified nursing assisting classes, CompTIA, which is entry-level IT classes, can be pretty intense, so not basic. Okay. So the ABE system is governed at the federal level, state, and local level to serve and support our students. In this overview, we will cover this system, the Adult Basic Education System, its policies and accountability, instruction and programming, which includes content standards, distance learning, transitions, IET, which is integrated educational training, ACP, which is adult career pathways, and secondary credentials. We're also going to cover volunteers and professional development. So today, Brandy and I have introduced ourselves. We'll let you guys introduce yourselves shortly. And then we're going to introduce you to who our students are, okay? We'll take a break, and then we're going to cover secondary credentials that Minnesota offers, and we'll do a quick wrap up. This webinar series is a series of 3. So the next one is October 8th, and that's going to cover Introduction to the Adult Basic Education System, as well as policy, accountability, and NRS, which is the National Reporting System. On October 22nd, we'll cover content standards, volunteers in adult basic education, and professional development. Okay, so now it's your turn to let us know where you're joining us from and what your role is. So just give us a little note in the chat, drop it in. Okay. And chat's open for you guys to introduce yourselves. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining us. and Katrina. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Oh, Lanisa, thank you for joining us from Worthington. Great. Okay. Hi, Leanne. Great. Ah, Walter, thank you. Thanks for joining us. That's great. Oh, Mandeep from Plymouth. Great. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on since we are, on a time schedule here. So, so where can you access this information later? Just so you know, you are going to get a copy of a PDF of the slides, so you'll access all the links. As well, I think Betsy's going to be dropping links in the chat as we go through things. But on the Atlas's website, there is a Minnesota Adult Education FAQ page, a frequently asked questions page, that you can always access. And also in the ABE Foundations online course and Canvas that you're in, that has a little deeper content than what we're covering, okay, in this webinar series. So, and we have Mary Megan, she just joined us. Welcome. Okay, so with Brandy and Patsy's help, we're going to go over the Minnesota Department of Education, Adult Basic Education Equity Statement. So the state Adult Basic Education Office is committed to creating an educational equity. Okay. We commit to recognizing the historical conditions and barriers that have prevented opportunity and success in learning for students based on their race, class, and other identities. Patsy?
We commit to working to dismantle the belief in a hierarchy of human value with a focus on racial equity.
Oh, and oops, I'll go to the next one.
We commit to fostering positive and effective learning environments for all by eliminating institutional policies that uphold oppressive systems of power and privilege.
We commit to collaborating, creating a learning community within the ABE system that promotes opportunities for self-reflection, growth, and change. We see ABE as key to building educated, engaged, and just communities for all Minnesotans.
Thank you. Okay, so this first segment, we're going to introduce you to our students. Who are they? So this section, we're going to identify who our adult basic education system serves, consider why adults participate in ABE, identify the information we collect and track on ABE students, and identify WIOA barriers to employment. So WIOA is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. Okay. So who do we serve? And the people, who are they, what are they coming to our schools for our programs, okay? They want to prepare to take the GED or high set exam. They're coming to us to earn a high school diploma or equivalent, which you'll be learning more about later today. They're coming to us to learn English. They are non-native speakers. So, our English language learners might know numerous other languages, and they're coming to us to learn English. They're coming to us to prepare for college and explore careers, or may need help preparing some skills for their career, like resume building, or improve their basic skills, like academic and math. They might be coming to us with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, or other barriers, okay? So who is eligible to be an ABE student? They have to be at least 17 years and old and not enrolled or required to be enrolled in high school and meet one or more of the following. they unable to speak, read, or write fluent English, do not have a high school diploma, or they're coming to us to, for basic skills development in literacy and math. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing because, you know, like if anybody has questions, bring up now, but we're going to do check our knowledge. I'm going to share a different screen with you guys. You'll see that shortly. It's just going to be a little, we're going to check our understanding and play a little game. So I'm going to, let's make that bigger and present. And then I'm going to share on a different screen. Okay. So what is everybody seeing? Are they seeing a thing that says Minnesota Adult Education?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to move to the next screen for a second. Okay. So either open up another like web page on your PC or laptop, or take a take your phone camera and like take the link and just scan the QR code. Okay, I'll leave that up for a couple minutes. So I'll do it myself, make sure it's working. There we go. So once you're in, you should see a little arrow, a green arrow. Okay. Oh, and thank you, Patsy, for dropping in the access code for those of you that are participating on a PC or laptop. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to go over a couple questions and we'll warm up first. The first is just a practice. Okay. So everybody can see coffee cups? I hope so.
Yep, we see them.
Great. Okay, so on your device, there's like a little bubble. You can just move that around and pick the coffee that you would choose, okay? And then you hit submit. So you put the little bubble over your choice and hit submit. Great. And then on my screen, I see a lot of blues, little dots, okay? That's how it works. So this is just how this little, we're going to have a four question little quiz. So then this is just the first practice. So, okay, this is not the right or wrong answer, but when I move on to the yes or no answer, you'll see the right answer. Okay, so we'll move on to our questions. So here we have a potential student is 25 years old with a high school diploma and a 5th grade reading level. So you guys decide yes or no, is this student eligible? So again, just take your little pen, click it on yes or no, and hit submit. Okay. Okay. We have some yeses, some nos. Let's see what the answer is. Okay. Yes, this student is eligible because they're 25 years old. Okay. Next. So next question. A potential student comes in asking for GED classes. She's 16 years old. Is this student eligible? Yes or no? Okay, great. Have a couple dots. Oh yeah, okay, looking good here. Correct. No, this student is not eligible. She's 16 years old and she is not eligible because she's not at that 17-year threshold. Okay. Question 3. A potential student is 18 years old, is in high school, and once said 10 evening ESL classes. Is this student eligible? Yes or no? Okay. Got some dots going. Great. No, this student is not eligible. She's still in high school. Okay. Last question. A potential student is 38 years old and has a college degree from a home country, but struggles to speak, read, and write English. Is this student eligible? Yes or no? Got a bunch of yeses. And that's correct. Yes, the student is eligible. Okay. Great. Okay, thanks for playing with me, guys. I'm going to get on the right page now so I can share with you the screen here. So give me 2 seconds to get everything right for you. And okay, oops, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second to stop to share the right page in Zoom. Here we are. There we go. Screen 1. Okay. Get it back on presenter. Move some things around. Okay. So everybody, I'm going to move to the next slide. And this slide says, guess the numbers. Can everybody see that slide?
We sure do.
Great. Okay, so this is not anonymous, but don't worry, you're learning new things. I'm going to read out the statement on the left. On the right, with some blanks. On the right, there are some numbers that you might not be familiar with, but just, drop in the chat as I go along. You can drop all 3 numbers at the same time or one at a time in the chat, however. But I'm going to read out this statement and you decide which number fits the blank, okay? So each year, an estimated blank delivery sites serve approximately blank adult students. About 1/2 of these students are enrolled in English learner programs. Licensed teachers provide ABE instruction and are assisted by more than blank trained volunteers. Okay, so what do you guys think? How many delivery sites do we think we have? Okay, yep. Katrina Lanisa says 300. Yep. Abdi, hi Abdi. Yep. Okay, correct. It is 300 delivery sites. How
Sorry, I
many?
was on mute. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, and then we have okay, so we have 300 delivery sites. How many adult students do you think those 300 sites are delivering content to? Yep, 50,000. That's correct. Yep. And then we have licensed teachers. How many trained volunteers do you think are assisting? This is estimated, right? It's 1,400 trained volunteers, right? So that's a lot. Great. Okay, so what do we need to know about our students? This is where Brandy's going to take over for a little bit, and I'll continue sharing it, but I will mute myself, Brandy, okay?
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. So we wanted to get into what do we need to know about our students, because this is information that you'll be seeing as intake and processing students. And so that first information collected at intake, if you'll click for me, we collect information like name, address, phone number, gender or sex, ethnicity. We also collect social security numbers. Now, this is not a requirement, but this is highly encouraged because we use social security numbers to identify students for measurable skills gains, as well as working out in the workforce or enrolling into post-secondary. We also collect their primary language, as well as date and country of birth, location, highest grade level completed, and even their employment status. And then student data collected that is tracked from this information is their entry date, as well as their pre-test information, their EFL, which is that educational function level, which is either a 1 through a 6, either ABE or ESL. And then we also collect their contact hours, their class participation, post-test information, diploma attainment, and their exit date. And all of that information helps us during the year find where these students trickled through, if they completed MSGs, if they went on to post-secondary, if they went on to work, or had higher paying wages. Next slide, please. The labor force status. So there are 4 options on your intake that we ask specifically that you have to track. And that is, are they employed? Are they unemployed? Are they not in the labor force at all? Or are they employed, but they're about to be terminated or separated? Additional information collected. This is what we call barriers to employment. And there are 13 specific barriers that the federal government as well as WIOA likes us to collect. And these are displaced homemakers, English language learners, individuals with low levels of literacy, individuals facing substantial cultural barriers, individuals within 2 years of exhausting a lifetime of, I believe we call it MFIP, eligibility, or TANF, and then ex-offenders, individuals experiencing homelessness, and or children and youth experiencing homelessness. And then also youth that are in or have aged out of the foster care system, long-term unemployment at 27 weeks or further, low-income individuals, migrant and seasonal farm workers, individuals with disabilities, and single parents, including a single pregnant woman. And to the right, you can see that these are federally recognized barriers through WIOA, and these are to be self-reported. So when you're intaking a student and they come to this portion of the application, either through counseling and conversation or having them identify themselves, students can identify none, or they can identify one, or they can identify multiples. So I always like to use myself as an example. When I was going through the ABE system and obtaining my GED, I probably had about 6 of these that I could check that I was affiliated with.
We have a question, Brandy,
Yes.
from a participant. Can you discuss cultural barriers?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. So one of the examples that I like to use is we had learned this through our Indigenous training earlier this year, that a lot of our students that are on reservations are identified with a tribal nation. They have rituals where they are staying home and missing lengthy days of school or classes. And so that could be a cultural barrier that hinders them from either participating in the workforce and or here at school, because that is something that they are completing through their cultural needs. And so that's not the only example, but that's one that usually people can identify with and understand. Sometimes students won't understand that themselves until we can kind of try to explain it in easier terms. Is that helpful? Okay. And one of the reasons why that we ask this question about these barriers to employment is that these identifying markers assist us as a state when working on trying to create our targets with the federal reporting. So every year we have MSGs and we have a percentage of targets that we try to hit. And as we properly identify our cohorts of students as well as our communities, it assists us in trying to negotiate those targets at a lower level because they have barriers to employment and or barriers to completion. And so this is always a very helpful tool in making sure that we are appropriately reporting our students and our base population. Is there any other questions?
I have one myself. So I do lots of intakes and so on. And I work with a lot of people that they've just immigrated here to Minnesota. They're living with a family member. Some of these people might be young women, and in their culture, they may need, it may be more like they might find it more comfortable to live with family until they move out with a partner, you know, like get married and move out with their partner. Are they considered homeless if they're just kind of, you know, staying with family, or how does that work, Brandy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we think about homelessness, we think about a non-permanent residence. And so a lot of people, when they think homeless, they think living under a bridge. It's kind of the example I use. But homelessness can be sleeping on someone's couch. It could be that your home has burned down and you're sleeping at an aunt's home. So it doesn't have to always mean that you're sleeping in a car or sleeping on a bench or even at a homeless shelter. So in this instance of the scenario, this person, that is their permanent home. That is their family home. They are not at risk of being kicked out because that is their culture to stay home. But what I'd like to also think about is in terms of, what if they're a displaced homemaker? What if they don't work because they're assisting with the family needs, like a housewife, or taking care of elderly parents, and then they come see us trying to boost their skills for the workforce or even for education purposes? And so, yes, they may not be homeless, but maybe they are a displaced homemaker.
I have another one just on the same note. This ABDI.
Okay,
So I know being homeless is not only like you are not living in your car or you're not finding somewhere to live. It includes, as you mentioned, living with our relatives, sleeping on someone's couch. So this morning I was helping a family who are just very new to the country. They're about 10 days, actually 15 days, and they moved from another state. So, and right now they don't have a permanent address. So when I asked them, there's this form you click when you're registering a student, like in a regular school. So, and when I went to this page where it says, are you homeless? When I asked these questions, they are like, no, we are not homeless. Then one of the families they live, the lady they live was with her. She's like, no, they're not homeless. I'm like, okay, but they don't have a permanent residency. They are not, they're still finding somewhere to live. Right now they are homeless. No, so that's cultural barrier that people cannot confess that they are homeless when they are living with relatives. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
they
And it's
think whoever like is a homeless is someone who has been trouble, who has been having trouble with the law, or someone who has been in jail,
correct.
something like that.
And that's just kind of engaging with conversation when counseling the student, because of
Yeah.
course, if they're just looking at these terms, especially when they're the government proper definitions, it can be a little bit daunting to understand what we're trying to collect. So that's where having that conversation of this is what it could look like, or I have another student that's experienced the same situation. And until we have a permanent resident for you and you're able to have a permanent address, then that would be considered homeless because you're looking for a permanent home. And they may still walk away saying, no, we're not homeless. And that's their self-identification, but at least you tried your best efforts and understanding and counseling with them.
And I think, I don't know if this is possible, if they use a better term, like it's not a bad term, but more friendly, kind of like, no, you're not in trouble with the law. No, yeah,
Yeah.
hardworking folks, but right now, until we find somewhere for you, you're not homeless. You're kind of like homeless, but so
So there are other options, like when it comes to presenting this in the application, it needs to have the actual language of homeless, but you could also add additional language beyond that in parentheses. Are you living in a permanent resident? Are you
yeah, kind of
living
like,
with a
yeah,
family
explain
member
kind of
that's not
stuff.
your normal home? But then, of course, with language barriers, are they going to be able to read that? So then, of course, just more explanation and conversation is going to be the best factor here. Having done intakes myself, I completely understand where you've got individuals that don't want to emphasize any type of barrier. They're just there for ESL courses and there's no problems in the home, or they're worried about being a statistic or having their information collected. So that's why I even say this information is not collected and associated with your name. This has nothing to do with Jane Doe is homeless. This is just trying to show our state population that we have a lot of people coming in from other states and other countries. And in their moment of entrance with us, they're not permanent residency because they're working on that. And it helps us be able to identify large groups of people in need. So then we can identify that properly to the federal agencies. And so sometimes it's not going to help. They're still going to say no, but sometimes they may understand and be a little bit more willing and forthcoming with their information.
Well, so Brandy, we have another question.
Okay.
This is from Pajwa Yang.
Yes.
Is there a federal report that then highlights the most common self-reported barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to NRS, which is the National Reporting System, and this is what I myself do in my position with our director, Brad Haskamp, we take all of your August submissions and we massage this data into different types of tables. And you can go look at ours that have been published through previous program years, and you can look at any other state nationally, and you can start to look at cohorts of students in states of where they're needing assistance, where they have a higher, larger group of barriers. And it's usually called the SPR, which is the student performance. And that's usually the very first table that pops up on that list. And it breaks it down from age, it breaks it down from barrier, it breaks it down into ethnicity. So we take a lot of that information that you give us in August, and we create these tables that tell a story of our state and our student population and the needs and also the outcomes of what we're doing here in Minnesota. Oh, good to know. Thank you. Yeah. Most definitely. Are there any other questions specifically related to these barriers? Because we're going to go a little bit deeper into them as well. So if we go to the next slide, I want to talk about ABE students facing these barriers. So we have every student that walks through our doors is going to be an individual with low level of literacy. That doesn't matter if they're going to be ABE or ESL. But we also have individuals that may have the additional barrier as an English language learner, or those individuals facing substantial cultural barriers. So the difference of these three options is every student will be an individual with low literacy. So if we have 35,000 students for the year that are become participants, and remember, a participant is a person that has 12 hours or more and a pre-assessment in the classroom. And when that person becomes a participant, they are all low levels of literacy. But some of those may be ELL, and some of those may also have and or a substantial cultural barrier. Next slide. Possible scenarios. So let's look at some definitions of the 13 barriers of employment and look at some scenarios. So displaced homemaker, again, we talked about a displaced homemaker being someone that might be providing unpaid services to a family member in the home. They may be dependently financial. That scenario, Rachel, that you brought up, they don't work. They're a female in a home where it's traditionally they stay home until marriage. They're dependently financially on that home and or a person. Another is a dependent spouse, like an active duty or armed forces. And then also unemployed or underemployed individuals finding difficulty upgrading in employment. So this could be a displaced homemaker.
We have one more question about the low literacy from Katrina. Low level of literacy for GED learners as well.
Yes, correct. So low level literacy is not just associated with ESL. We have a lot of native born citizens here in the United States that are coming out of high school, either with a high school diploma, or they have dropped out with low level of literacy. And so a lot of our students that we are seeing that are going through a high school equivalency, because remember, we're a two-test state, so we have GED and or the HiSET. And so those individuals that are going through an ABE program and their goal is high school equivalency, they could be coming to you with a 3rd grade reading level, a 6th grade reading level. That is not up to standards of proficiency. And so they would be considered low level literacy. All right, and next slide. So low income, this is something that a lot of people kind of forget because they'll either say, well, I'm on food stamps, but I'm not low income. Or I'm low income, but I'm not eligible for food stamps. And so we see a lot of conundrums this way. And so talking through this is a person receiving any type of state aid or public assistance. And a lot of people will show their Medicaid card, or if their children have Medicaid, then that's considered low income. If they're homeless, if they're receiving a free or reduced lunch, I know that all children here in K-12 public schools get a free lunch, but they also still collect information, even though every student is getting it. So that's something that they would know if they had completed and filled out for their children. If they're in foster care, because yes, 17 and 18-year-olds, even up to 21, can still be in foster care. And then disability income meets income requirements, but the family income is over the limit. So what that would mean is I have a disability income, but I'm living at my family's home, but that is my one and personal income is what I bring in as Social Security disability. We went into homelessness a little bit more. It's not just someone that is living on the streets. It could be living in a motel, sharing a residence due to economic hardship, sleeping on someone's couch or for a long period of time. And then disabilities. So physical or mental impairments that limit one or more activities. So when we think of disabilities, of course, physical disabilities is more apparent to be able to identify. And usually individuals with a physical disability are the first to identify that they have a disability because they've been working basically since that disability began for accommodations and working through. But we also have mental impairments as learning disabilities as well. So disabilities of speaking and learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, communicating. These are all different types of disabilities. Students that go through the K-12 system, maybe conversations of like, did you have an IEP? Did you have special accommodations when you were going to regular class? Did you work with a certain teacher that helped read to you aloud? Did you get to take tests multiple times in an attempt to get a higher grade score? So these are questions that we can speak to our students to kind of assist in identifying if they have that mental or learning disability that wouldn't be so apparent like a physical one. All right, let's do some scenarios. So top left, student at intake identifies that they are living with their aunt since their mother lost their job. And before we click next, who thinks, what would they fall under as one of those 13 barriers or more? And just say it out loud, or you can put it in the chat. Top left, a student at intake identifies that they are living with their aunt since their mother lost her job. What are the 13? We see homeless, correct, because they're living at their aunt's and it's not their home. Anything else? Homelessness. Perfect. Next slide will show us the answer. Possible answers. Homelessness, possibly low income, also possibly state aid. So now that they've had the home burned down, and also thinking about this, they're living with their mother. So are they a displaced homemaker? Because what if they're reliant on that mother's income? So lots of options here. Top right, a student aged 25 receives SSDI and has to live at home with parents for financial support. Before we click next, what do we think in the chat would be possible barriers for this 25-year-old who receives SSDI and has to live at home with the parents for financial support? And you can also unmute yourself and say out loud, be a little interactive. I see disabled, correct, for that SSDI. All right.
Low income, would that be
Low.
another one?
Low income, yes, because SSDI, remember, just because they are living in a home with other individuals that have a higher income, their income is a family of one. So in WIOA standards, if someone has Social Security disability, they're a family income of one. So if you click that slide, disabilities and low income, perfect. Bottom left, student identifies at intake that they had an IEP when in school. So what would possible barriers be for this student? We have lots of students come through going, I didn't do really well in K-12. I had special classes, or I had an IEP or accommodations. So what are we looking at here?
They might have never had the good opportunity to learn the language. Maybe English is.
Could be an ESL, absolutely, because that's a lot of individuals are put with an IEP if they're low literacy and English language barriers when they first go through the K-12 system. Thank you. All right, let's click that next. So we see disabilities specifically, and then also what you had mentioned. Bottom right, student had incarceration with juvenile criminal process when they were younger, but now as an adult, they had none. So what are we looking about right here? A student had incarceration with juvenile criminal process when they were younger, but now as an adult, they have none.
They're looking at poverty now, maybe. Or acquiring a job is a trouble. It's hard.
It can be a very hard obstacle for individuals with a criminal background, yes. Let's go ahead and click that. And we're going to see that it's ex-offenders because they were a participant in the juvenile system at some point in their life. We also have low income possibly, like you had mentioned, Abdi. And we also, what about foster care? A lot of individuals, when they're juveniles, they're really not going back home. What if they're put into facilities for youth? So these are questions that we're always asking and finding out with our students. Next
Okay.
slide, please.
Great. So this is my slide right before we go to break, Brandy. So this is the Minnesota or Literacy Minnesota Adult Literacy Hotline. Earlier I discussed who our students were. Well, how do they get to know where our programs are? This is one avenue. Okay. So when you put your information in SID for your site, along with program information like classes, it all gets populated here, depending on if you allow it to be populated in a hotline. So if you have a student that says, hey, teacher, I'm moving to Wilmer, I need to find a new school, this is one option that you can assist students in finding different classes, different programs that might be closer to them and that kind of thing. And then also you can tap into this while we take a break. Patsy dropped the link in the chat, but we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. And so we can stretch your legs and we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Whoops. There we are. Okay. Can everybody see my screen where it says Minnesota Adult Secondary Credentials?
We sure do.
Great. Okay. Brandy, you're back on.
Thanks so much. So the next thing that we want to discuss is identifying the 3 secondary credentialing options that are available in our state, Minnesota's ABE program. And also we're going to be able to identify issuing agencies of those types of diplomas or secondary credentials, as well as identifying the pros and cons of each model and option, and identifying the diploma options within the program. So there are 3 options in the state of Minnesota. An adult has 3 options of earning a secondary credential in Minnesota. The first is the high school diploma, which is a credit-based. The second is a high school equivalency, or the HSC diploma, which is a test-based. And the third is the standard adult high school diploma, which is a competency-based. So if we start looking at those singularly, a secondary credential is an academic or educational diploma that evaluates the 4 years of high school levels skills in the areas of English, language arts, math, science, and social studies. And so by taking a look at option number 1, most people use this as credit completion or credit recovery, sometimes also the traditional high school diploma. So these are credit-based high school diplomas models that are available at ABE programs that have an agreement with a school district or a high school to offer credit completion. And this diploma is issued by that local school district. So a student walks into the program, they work with an affiliated school district or a local high school, and they see the missing credits and they assist in completing those credits to fulfill the high school graduation needs. This is ideal for any adult student that has a lot of high school credits and there's a small amount that needs to be completed for recovery. Next slide, option number 2, that GED or high set. This is what's called the high school equivalency. There are 2 approved states in the state of Minnesota that are allowed to qualify individuals to learn a HSC diploma. HSC diplomas, once earned, can help testers gain higher paying wages, as well as allow entrance into post-secondary institutions for additional credentials and degrees. So if I'm wanting to go to college, or I'm wanting to go into a proprietary school, I'm going to need that high school diploma or a high school equivalency, and this would be my ability to transfer into that next institution. What are these tests? So both GED and HiSET are a series of tests that can be taken at official testing centers or online at home with a proctor. We do offer paper testing to be taken here in the state. looking at paper testing policy for each student to determine if you're eligible. So each GED and HiSET have a paper policy where you need to meet requirements. And if you do meet those requirements, you are eligible for paper testing as well. We usually, 99% of the time, students are taking a computer-based test at a designated testing center, but we do see a lot of online testing at home or online testing at your program to assist with the needs of testing schedules. What is on the HSE test? So again, remember we talked about it showing the equivalence of competency within those 4 test subjects. So we see RLA for reasoning through language arts over in GED. That takes 150 minutes and there's a 10-minute break in between because the writing and the reading are together within that test. So that's why it's so long. We also have mathematics, which is 115 minutes maximum. We have science at 90 minutes maximum and social studies at 70 minutes maximum. Does this mean that the student has to utilize all of those allotted hours? No. If a student can take and pass one of their tests within 50 minutes of the social studies, then they get to save that extra 20 minutes. They do not have to utilize all of the time given, but that is the maximum time given. HiSET has 5 test subjects because they separate the reading and the writing. So just, so you have reading at 65 minutes and then writing is 120 minutes because within that writing of the essay, there is also multiple choice. Mathematics is 90 minutes, science is 80 minutes, and social studies is 70 minutes. So ideally, the 2 of the tests really are comparable within that 7 hours, and 5 minutes are 7 hours and 30 minutes for a GED. Who can take the test? GED and HiSET are available to individuals that are 19 years or older, or if they're 17 and 18, they've been approved an age waiver. And we can put that age waiver link into the chat as well. But an age waiver is for anyone that's 17 and 18, and there are 6 options to choose that would make you eligible. The majority of you at the program level will be seeing students walking in choosing option 6, which is they've taken a practice test, either GED or HiSET. They've received a certain score or higher, or they've come and taken a CASAS or TABE within your program and received a certain score or higher. And that gives them eligibility to take the GED or the HiSET. There are 5 other options. If you're not familiar with them, I absolutely encourage you to check out that age waiver and take a look at who assists and what kind of agency works with completing that document for the individuals at home. All right, what are the requirements that we talked about? So the 6 that we talked about are: 1 is dropped from a K-12 enrollment for either 12 or plus months. The second option is the high school class has graduated. Usually we see that with the 18-year-olds wanting to get an age waiver and their high school class has graduated. The next is a job offer is contingent on completing an HSE. We do not accept just an email or a written email saying, I have a job offer. It has to be on letterhead. It has to be from the employer stating that without this HSE, they are not eligible for the position. Number 4 and 5, 6 is acceptance from post-secondary institution contingent upon completing that HSE. The 5th one is acceptance to the military contingent on completing the HSE. And then that last option 6 is the one that I just mentioned, a proctored GED ready or the HiSET official practice test showing the individual is ready as well. And they also have TABE scores or CASAS scores in there. As these are the grade scales for either the GED or the HiSET. So on GED on the left-hand side, a 145 or higher is a passing score. So you are high school equivalency ready at a 145 to a 164. GED created what is called college ready with a score of 165 to 174 and a college ready plus credit at 175 or higher. I really want to explain the confusion around this. A lot of people think because they received a 175 or higher, they are automatically going to get a credit from a secondary institution, and that's not the case. And so post-secondary institutions determine if they want to give you a credit based off of that high score. Sadly, that's not the normal scenario because post-secondary institutions want you to pay the tuition and attend the classes. But what we have seen is individuals with these high scores sometimes don't have to take the pre-assessment into placement at the college because they have a high enough score. I've also seen some institutions that allow a student to take a test and completing the entire course and paying for the credit, but not having to attend the class. And those are usually done in a gen ed course. So if you work with a student, they get a score of 165 or even 175 or higher, please talk them through that counseling session of let's talk to the institution and see their options on this score. But hopefully they aren't saddened when they realize that they don't get that free credit. On the high set, they also have comparable scoring, but it's in a smaller scale. So a 0 to 7 is below passing. You have to have an 8 or higher to pass the high school equivalency or the high set. And then the pass of a college career ready is a 12 or to a 20, because 20 being the maximum. Now, the caveat to this is that the writing has to have a score of 2 or more on the essay. So if you passed the writing multiple choice and you got an 8 or a higher, but you only got a 1 on that essay, you do not pass the writing. You have to retake it. So you not only do you need the 8 in the writing, but that essay needs to be a 2 or higher, and it goes to a maximum of 6 points. And then last caveat to the scoring of the high set is that if you get 5 tests and receive an 8 on all, you do not reach that 40 plus. And so you actually need an average of 9 points. And so we tell a lot of people you can't just get 8 in every scenario or every test. You actually have to have 9 or in some areas to kind of borrow from higher scoring tests, if that makes sense. Any questions on the scoring of the GED or high set? All right, moving on. Option for free testing. So the state of Minnesota last year began having a voucher for MNHSE free. And what that means is that you can use this code 1 per test subject and get the entire test, the first time test, completely paid for. So if the student is taking GEDs, they get 4 vouchers because 1 per test subject. And then if the student is taking a high set, they would get 5 test vouchers, 1 per test subject. The tester must have a Minnesota address and be testing either via online proctor or in a testing center located in Minnesota. That is how that voucher will be eligible. This code can be used as the maximum of 4 for GED or 5 for high set. Retests are not eligible for the code discount. And so we try to explain to a lot of students, please be wary of that. Now, I've had the question, what if I get a student that's already taken the math and they've passed the math, they paid for it on their own, and now they only have to take 3 GEDs, but they get 4 test vouchers. They could use it 4 times if the student failed and had to do a retest. And so just letting you know that you only get 4 times the use. So that's all I'm saying is if a student has only 3 tests to take, but 4 vouchers to use, they can only use a maximum of 4 per GED or 5 per high set. And this funding is not forever. So we only have another 1.5 years, and then we'll go back to having a discounted funding voucher, which is usually around $10 off. The high set and GED tests, they're very comparable. So much of what the programs are preparing students for the GED will also work and prepare students for the high set. And we talk about this because we onboarded high set just last year. And a lot of people are asking, is it a different style of test? Is it a different curriculum? Is it different standards? So we wanted to ease people's minds and let them know if you are teaching high school equivalency within your program, you are preparing students for either or the GED or the high set. And I believe that is the last one. Is there any questions specifically on secondary options for the high set or HSE? Okay.
I learned something new myself.
What did you learn?
I thought that those 4 vouchers for GED, for example, just went for the first test. So I
Mhm.
didn't know you gave a really good example of how, you can use the 4th for a retake if necessary too. That's helpful.
I am just passing on the information. You get 4 tries per GED and 5 per high set.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else?
I don't see anything in the chat, so if we want to move on to adult.
Oh, no,
education.
Lanessa has something.
Remind me what the abbreviations, high set is the high school equivalent, high school equivalency test. And that's what high set stands for.
And I think GED is General Education Development.
Development, not
Yep.
diploma.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so moving on.
Our last option,
Oh.
option 3, is competency-based diploma, the standard adult diploma. Not every program in the state is offering this option of service. And what this test is, it's a high school diploma, but we here at the state are the agency that awards it. So once a student creates a portfolio and shows competency in all areas, then we here at the state will award, and then your program will print and give the diploma. So it's a mixed competency-based diploma that integrates prior experience, tests, and adult education work. So for example, I'm a high school dropout. I made it to the 10th grade. I have some credits, but I'm a working mom. I'm 30 years old and I got my CNA and I'm working as a CNA at the hospital. So you could pull my old high school credits and you could see that I had 9th and 10th grade credits. You could also pull my CNA test and licensure, which is considered life experience, and then also start to plug in the holes with some adult education work. So maybe I need that 11th grade math and 12th grade math, as well as the remaining test subjects. So ABE programs must go through training in order to provide this service. Currently, right now, we are not taking applications to onboard new programs. We are only working with the providers that are currently within the state system. The next is that ABE enrollees, they need to be 19 years or older. And so, and then also, again, like I mentioned, we here at the Minnesota Department of Education, we issue the diploma, but your program prints the diploma. Are there any questions from this? When do you anticipate the end of the free test? So we have that free funding for 3 years. We just began program year 2 within that funding. So we're looking towards the end of 2026. June of 2026 would be the program year, because this is going from 24 to 25 will be year 2, and then 25 to 26 will be the last year. And then our goal is that we get more funding, but right now that's when it runs through. Standard requirements. So the competency of the standard adult diploma, it goes over 5 subjects. Not only the language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science, but we also cover employability and career awareness. And this was created because students that are going through the K-12 system and going through high school, they get that career development as well. So we wanted to caveat that into our standard adult diploma to have a well-rounded student coming out with their high school diploma.
I have a question about this real quick.
Yes.
So if the portfolio that they're putting together, is that what I see in SID under the tab for adult diploma? Where
Yes,
the teachers
correct.
are putting in what the completion stuff is and all the fun things?
Yep.
Okay.
So if you work within a program that has a standard adult diploma program, the students' work would be uploaded into SID, and that's how we here at the state review. So again, you're working with a scenario of a student that's a 10th grade dropout. They have 9th and 10th grade credits across the board. You would be able to use those credits and say they've completed math algebra 1. They've completed 9th grade and 10th grade RLA, and you would be uploading that evidence. And then you would start to look at options of what they do in their life, maybe that CNA certification, get a copy of that and submit that into the employability and career. And then the remainder could be completed through project-based as well as more ABE instruction-based. And what we ask for is evidence. And so after that student has gone through hours of a course and completed and shown competency, they would give us the evidence to prove that within that standard of area that they've completed competency. And that's how we here at the state review that portfolio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions specifically? So we talked about demonstrating competencies. I'm getting ahead of myself. So that prior experience, we also take GED and high set scores as well as the old GED and AccuPlacer. So that's a really good one too that I forgot about. If a student walked in and said, back in 1999, I took the GED and I passed the math and the science, but I didn't finish it because we all know in 2014 that GED refreshed and no scores prior to that would roll over. But we could still use that in a standard adult diploma. So if a student took and passed the math test, there would be some additional information that they would have to complete, but not as strenuous as ABE instruction for all 4 math areas. Now, if a student took the GED and passed the math after 2014, all we would need is proof of that math, and they wouldn't have to complete any other math area because that competency is shown to be completed with a 2014 GED or a 2014 or older high set score. And so it's really imperative that we talk to students about, have you taken tests? Have you taken AccuPlacers when you tried to get into college when you were younger? Do you have an old ACT score from when you were in high school? I even have one of those. I actually came across it the other day, my old ACT and SAT scores. So, of course, ABE instruction and that experiential learning, which is including the contextualized projects. Key features, online student portfolios through SID, advising and career educational planning, standard transcript across all programs, portable transferable transcripts, as well as field reviewers for the portfolios. So we ourselves at MDE do not just review the portfolios and pass or not pass. We actually have a team of expert reviewers that go through the portfolios. They determine if an area passes or not passes, and then it moves on to us here at the state office, and we assist with that third review. So these are really scrutinized portfolios to make sure that the rigor and the standards of the standard adult diploma are being upheld daily.
We have a question. Yep.
Yeah. How can we search for programs who do the portfolio stuff? So if you go to our hotline, which was on one of the slides that you'll get through the presentation, our hotline, if you choose standard adult diploma and then you choose either Minneapolis or whatever's around, you'll be able to find programs within that region that offer standard adult diploma. And then Patsy put the hotline link into the chat as well. That's a lot of information. Where can I learn more? Of course, you can always access more information about the Minnesota Standard Adult Diploma at our MN Adult Education website. It is being revamped, so please be up to date on that, that there's a lot of outdated information because we as a team are working on uploading new information and updating the website, but you can always find information there. And of course, reaching out to a local provider if you're if you have a program near you. So if we have a student that walks to the door and they're really wanting an adult diploma, and maybe they're past the age where they could go back for credit recovery, this might be an option for them, and we might have to refer them to another program. And that's the great part about working together as a system, is having so many options for our students and places for them to go.
I have one comment on that is, I know I work at Mounds View, and Mounds View offers a credit completion diploma as well as GED. But if you do a search for Mounds View and you put in diploma, there's only like one option when you're doing that search on the hotline. It says adult diploma. And I asked Sid, I was like, is there, you know, as like, because people are going to think that we offer that state adult diploma, and that's where we have to do that counseling, so you know, session with a student saying, okay, this is what we have to offer, this or the GED. I can help you find another program if it is the standard adult diploma that you're looking for. So just something, a heads up for people, that's not a tab on that hotline where, if it says adult diploma, you might encounter, like find a program, but they might be offering the credit completion program, diploma through their local high school or school district.
Yeah, and sometimes the description would be not only when you go to the hotline, but it'll say like when you click on the link of the program that pops up, you can then start to kind of read what that program offers, and then you can put more information because whatever you put into SID will populate onto the hotline link. So that's where we're able to see the information. I work in public libraries, so we serve adult learners in different ways. One way is to keep adult learners informed and connected to resources. I'm curious how we can help access which option might be best for certain students. I'm so thankful that you asked that question because we're constantly talking about counseling as well as assisting students through that option of which service fits them best. And really, it's just a conversation piece. When a student walks through the door, what they know is what they hear. So how many times students walk through the door and go, I just want to get my GED because I got to get my high school equivalency, and they don't know the other options. And so really having that conversation of counseling of what are your goals? Are you wanting to go to college? Are you wanting to go to a tech school or community college? Are you wanting to get certification in a short-term cert like welding? Are you wanting to go straight into work? Like what are those aspirations? Because these might be able to better assist you. Also, do you have more time and you're willing to really put in the work? Because a standard adult diploma takes longer. And a lot of people don't realize that because they think it's the same equivalency as a GED or a high set, and it's not. And so understanding the options, understanding what we have, and then understanding how to counsel that student is going to be the best outcome for you and your student. Comparing the three, last slide on this one. So of course, option one, it's through credits, grades, and instructional hours. And then that issuing agency, the one that's going to put the stamp of approval, is that local K-12 district or that high school. Option two is the high school equivalency diploma, which is a GED or a high set. And that is a completion of passing test scores. And then that is the issuing agency is us here at the Minnesota Department of Education. And then option three is that standard adult high school diploma. That is a demonstration of competencies. It can be tests, it could be credits, it could be experiential learning throughout your life as an adult. And then of course the issuing agency is us at the Minnesota Department of Education, but your program prints that diploma for the student. So we would not print and put it in the mail like we do a GED or high set. That would be up to the program.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're getting close to time. We're about 15 minutes. So quickly, you guys can drop this in a chat or, open up your mic. But what secondary credential options does your program have that you offer? Maybe putting in a chat how you explain that to students and intake might be difficult. But if you don't know what your program has to offer, who are you going to go to, right? Who are you going to ask? So I know that Mounds View offers the GED option and the Mounds View High School Diploma because we have a contract with Mounds View School District. What does other people have to offer? And we also have a question from somebody. So maybe Brandy might be able to answer this too from a participant. I'm sorry if I missed this, but which of the three options is best for different goals?
Really good question. So I know it sounds like a broken record, but if a student walks in and you're having a counseling session and you're speaking with them about their experiences as well as their goals. So I'm going to use me as an example because that's usually my go-to forte is I'm a high school dropout. I finished 10th grade, but I want to go to college and I want to get a 4-year degree. But I have a baby at home and I am basically homeless and I'm a teenage mom. So I don't have the time to come to class, come to school. I don't have the income to put the baby into daycare. I need to get a high school equivalency. And so knowing the goals of where that student wants to go, as well as their ability and their current life situation is always the best way to counsel a student. Because if I had come in saying, well, I want to get my high school diploma and I don't care how long it takes me, I want that diploma, I don't want a high school equivalency, then working with a student towards standard adult diploma, or I'm 40 years old and I want to do credit recovery, that's not an option. The option is to usually, because I have so many credits that are missing, and or my credits are old and the standards have changed and they're no longer eligible. So really having an understanding of their background, their goals, and what fits best. I tell a lot of people, if you're working with individuals that have digital literacy, low literacy skills, sometimes the high set might be a little bit easier for them than the GED because of the way that it is presented in the digital format. It's a scroll up and down and multiple choice question based test only. GED has multiple tabs, click and drag, best fit choice. And so you have to have a higher digital skills to take the GED than the high set. Or if someone was in prison and they really didn't learn how to use a computer all that much, and now they're out and they're wanting to get a high school equivalency. So really understanding their background as well as their goals is going to assist you in counseling them the best. I hope that helped.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay, so we'll move on. We'll start our wrap up. Okay. So, drop in the chat, what's one thing that you're taking away from today? I know that I learned today that I could maybe be using that homemaker option or explaining that a little bit better to some of the people that I'm encountering at intake, like some of these new immigrants, they're staying with a family member, maybe taking care of their brothers or sisters' kids while they're going to ESL classes, you know, that I can counsel a little bit better on that. Any thoughts? Oh, we're getting some things in the chat here. Yep, definition of homelessness. Oh, okay. Brandy, we might have another one here for you. What is the best option for students a student who's 18 years old, currently in 12th grade, new to the country with no English, but would like to graduate soon? Well, they could still participate, like they're 18, so they can probably still participate in K through 12. Brandy, do you have any ideas?
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Mm-mm.
So working with a community organization to give options for help.
Oh, no, it's one right above it. Best option for an 18-year-old that's 18, currently in 12th grade, but new to the country and with no
okay.
English. Yep.
So
Yeah.
when working with a student like that, we really do encourage the possibility of going back to K-12 because the student would have a lot more resources in working with either ESL and inclusionary classrooms, as well as speech therapy, and then getting any type of credits transferred over because the school works with those resources. When you are working with maybe an older immigrant person that has new to the country and they're wanting to either get a high school equivalency or they're just wanting to work on their language skills, then possibly ABE ESL is going to be the route for them. But we always encourage students of that age population, if they can enroll back into K-12, we encourage that route. And if not, then of course we are always here with open doors. They can stay until 22. Patsy is correct. Yes. So thank you for that, Patsy. Are there any other questions? These are great questions, you guys.
Great. Oh, here's another one from Leanne. Thank you. Does ABE serve college-educated immigrants who need English language?
Great question. So ABE can serve college-educated individuals. There's so many times that we have students come into our classrooms. I remember that I had a electrical engineer in my class. I remember having doctors and lawyers because they had educations from their home country. The sad part is sometimes their credits and their degrees do not transfer as a whole here in America. And so I've worked with many students that are in the process of transferring their degrees. And then, of course, they're missing credits. And so they're having to either go back to college to complete those credits and be able to get back into the workforce and that career field, or they're just starting over. And so we have a lot of highly educated individuals that attend our ESL classes. Also, you're going to see college students that are enrolled in ABE. We are working with co-requisite courses at the college because just because you're in college doesn't mean you have high literacy skills. A lot of individuals are needing that assistance in the co-requisite classes, and they are partnering with local ABE providers for that. Optical surgeon from the Czech Republic, yeah. Yeah, biochemical engineer one time. He taught from Uganda, is one of my students.
Okay, we're getting close to the end here. So just a reminder, work through the ABE online foundations course on Canvas if you're in there already. Again, our next webinar, the second one of the series of 3, is October 8th, and that's the introduction to the ABE system, as well as policy, accountability, and the national reporting system. October 22nd is our third and final webinar, and it's going to cover content standards, volunteers in ABE, and professional development. Okay. And, okay. Are you interested in acquiring an ABE license? Would you like to say anything about this, Patsy, since this is your alma mater?
Yeah. Well, so the only place in Minnesota to get an adult basic education license, the state issued license, is here at Hamlin. So I've dropped a little information. Actually, I didn't hit send. Let me do that. Information about what that looks like, what's involved, and if you want to know more, please just contact me. I'll put my email in there as well. We have a certificate program, a licensure program, and additional licensure. So if you have a K-12 license in something, but are interested in adding that ABE, we can work with you on that. We also have just a series of courses you can take to comprise a certificate if you don't need the full license for your context.
And I did the certificate program, guys, for 1 year.
Yep, Rachel was an excellent student. Yeah.
It was fun. I learned a lot. And Lanessa is interested in learning more. So Patsy, you can connect with her directly.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, what's next? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, you will be emailed the recording from today's webinar, as well as PDF slides. Again, you have those links within the slides to click on. And then after the third webinar on October 22nd, you'll receive an evaluation link. So any feedback you can provide us is really helpful. We do appreciate it. And then you will get CEUs, continuing education units, that reflect your participation in this webinar series. Okay, and that's it. Thank you. I think we finished a little bit early. So if anybody has any questions, we're still here and we're happy to help and answer. And we appreciate all the input you guys gave to us and your interaction. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And thank you to Rachel. I'll stop the recording.